Without further ado, I'm so excited to announce our first speaker for the day, Keely Wilkins. She is a cybersecurity strategist, an engineer, and evangelist coming from Checkpoint Security. She's going to talk today about cyber risk. Keely.
Thank you, Catherine, and good morning. I heard it was a rough night at the bar last night. So I'm Keely, I'm with Checkpoint Software Technologies. And today, well, first of all, thank you for sharing part of your morning with me. Right, I'm honored to be here and to share a little bit with you of what goes on in my brain because it's a little different from most other people. So today we're going to talk about how something as small as a 5% delta between catch rates, like 90% versus 95% of a catch rate, can equate to, like, it's actually $1.3 million in cyber risk, depending upon your data sources. And what actually got me started down this road is two of my evangelist peers. Pete Nicoletti is one of our global CISOs. He said, hey, nobody talks about catch rate, nobody talks about product efficacy. We need to do that more. I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then we both got busy with other things. And then one of our architects in Italy, Peter Elmer, said, hey, how do we demonstrate the value of our product or any security product? I said, yeah, that's a great idea. We should work on that. And we both got busy with other things. So with their inspiration, I started digging in my spare time and trying to figure out how to put a number to the problem, right? This is just part of maybe the beginning parts of the overall risk management problem. And the beauty of this, from my perspective at least, is your data sources don't matter. So long as they're valid data sources, you can trace back where they got their data, like did they do their analysis themselves? Are they pulling it from other sources? So long as you understand your data sources and can validate like the raw data, I mean, have at it, plug and play all day. So let's get started. So we're going very high level, talk a little bit about data science and risk management, just to set the stage for the value of a catch rate. It's extremely high level, so we're not going to get into any of the fun stuff related to data science. And then that naturally flows into risk management, and then the value of the catch rate and how you can plug and play your data sources. And because nobody believes that it's like $1.3 million in risk per week, because that's absurd. It is absurd. I've positioned this to a number of people in cybersecurity, cyber insurance, and yeah, the only almost negative feedback I've gotten is, hey, those numbers are crazy. And I agree, the numbers are crazy. So take different data sources, plug them in, and you're going to get comparable deltas. All right, so let's talk about the art of data science a little bit and consider for a moment how data science is like origami. All right? We start with a flat piece of paper, and a skilled person can, well, for origami, a skilled person can take that piece of paper, fold it over on itself a few times, and present us with something new, like a bird or a giraffe. In a similar fashion, a skilled person, data scientists, can take data, work some magic, and give us something new that tells a story. So on the left-hand side here is just a diagram of how to turn that flat piece of paper into a bird. Right? Something that once was flat and shapeless now has form and depth. And it helps us to tell a story. And on the right-hand side, if you're squinting to see what data that is, I literally Googled images of random data. So it has actually no value. But you can see the issue if we start with the wrong data. You know, we have bad analysis. You know, phishing events only happen when I have tuna salad for lunch. right? Phishing, I get it. There's a correlation, but it makes no sense. And the solution is eat more chicken. You know, eating more chicken is a great tagline for a fast food restaurant who specializes in chicken. They make a great breakfast burrito, but it has no correlation to phishing events. So both origami and data science are transformative. But we need that data, or that piece of paper, to offer us colorful and useful intelligence. You know, if we start with the right paper, we're able to make an origami bird army. And sure, it won't match up to a clone army, but you know, it looks like fun and I want one. And when we start with the right data, we're able to tell a story and provide useful intelligence, like the average cost of a phishing attack, or the percentage of untrained employees that will click on a phishing link. So the intelligence that you get from your source data sets the stage for cyber risk management. And who doesn't like talking about cyber risk management? Because it's really provocative. Actually, most people don't like talking about cyber risk management. You know, I've presented on this topic a number of times, and this slide is as awesome as it gets. So just, and I'm going to repeat this a few times. So the risk is the probability of harm or loss. It's not de facto cost savings or financial gain. It's just risk. So very high level overview. And actually, I've changed this slide slightly since then, but it's all good. If we've, excuse me, many of us have been in cyber risk management planning sessions, if not in a boardroom, then in a classroom, maybe not the full plan, maybe just portions of the plan. So this isn't new information, very high level. When we're talking about risk, we have choices to make. We can choose to ignore the risk, which is never a good idea, most especially with cyber. We can accept the risk, which should be strategic. You know, you need to be purposeful and surgical with whatever risk you choose to accept, and I highly recommend that you document it, because when that bit is flipped, there will be questions. And when you choose to accept the risk, it's because the potential benefit outweighs the potential detriment. Right? And we can choose to prevent, so reduce and avoid the risk via prevention-first security strategy. Right? And then there's leftover risk, our external risk. Well, first external risk. So things like, well, I used to work for UPS corporate IT, masters at process management. But even with UPS, there are things that they cannot account for, like hurricanes and broken water mains, things that prevent them from doing what it is that they do, getting package from point A to point B in as best condition as possible in a timely manner, right? Can they do that in a hurricane? Maybe before the hurricane, probably not after it. And then there's things like cyber insurance, where you can transfer the remaining risk. Cyber insurance, if you're familiar with the impact and probability matrix, cyber insurance should be reserved for low probability of occurrence, high impact if it does occur. So there's a low chance this is going to happen, but oh my goodness, if it does, it's going to cost and have impact beyond like financials. So that's what cyber insurance should be used for. Okay. So when we talk about risk, or when there's a lot of obstacles when we're having conversations. Maybe it's observational, is it observational? Yeah. Bias, where we only seek out or find sources that support our own agenda or predisposition. There's the hear no evil, see no evil, sorry. I jumped ahead. But hear no evil, see no evil, where we have, sorry, I changed my slide deck since then, and I'm kind of losing it. Can we go back one? Thank you. All right. So there's a whole lot of challenges between knowing that we have risk, having the conversation about risk, and then managing it. And it can be, this is very simplistic. It gets complicated with the more variables that you add. But in an effort for this process to be more dependable and predictable, risk probability models have been built. And do you know who's really fantastic at building risk probability models? The money people, the bankers, the insurers, the investors. So these are your influencers and your stakeholders. Right? All right, so you're not the only one looking at your cyber risk. In the middle of the slide, that's your money people. But it's also your employees, your supply chain partners, your board of directors, government agencies, your compliance regulators. Right. So one of the things that doesn't get a whole lot of airtime when we're talking about risk management is the value of a catch rate. And there may be a number of reasons for that. Perhaps it's because it's not understood, or perhaps it is understood and maybe a specific vendor doesn't have a great catch rate, so they don't want to advertise it. But a catch rate, if you're unfamiliar with the term, is the efficacy or the ability of the security solution to prevent, to detect and prevent, hopefully prevent, cyber attacks. So catch rates are usually determined by independent test labs. So they're not determined by the vendor. They may be the test may be commissioned by the vendor. The results may be marketed by the vendor, but it's not performed by the vendor. So the vendor can't say, oh, we tested our own product, and now that's not good enough, because if I am a vendor, we test our own products for internal use, but then we do commission independent tests. Okay. So this picture, because I'm a dork, this picture on the slide demonstrates the cat's catch rate of butterflies. But the important part is he made it to the upper right-hand quadrant. My jokes are falling flat. Humor me. All right, so independent testing. On the left-hand side, just a list of market influencers. It's not an all-inclusive list. There are many other companies that influence security purchases in the market. Some of these are market saturation driven, like who's outselling who. Others are feature driven, who has the best features, the most applicable features. Others are independent testing. Right? So if you're looking for catch rates, you want those reports that demonstrate the value of the test. So when you look at reports, what is the type of report? Is it marketing? Is it feature-based? How old is the report? What version of the code is being presented, tested, and then, so what's being tested? How is it being tested? Does that align with your objectives? And what are the test results? So what is the catch rate? So something that I've noticed a lack of conversation around is the other side of that catch rate. So if a product has a 95% catch rate, then the consumer is assuming the remaining 5% of that risk. But what I've not seen in the industry is anybody attempt to put a dollar value to that 5% of risk. And this is where I get into the weeds a little bit. Right? So going back to choosing your data sources, for this example, I have 3 data sources: the IBM cost of a data breach report, 1 variable from Checkpoint Research, because I didn't want to slant it and make it a Checkpoint commercial, and 1 variable from KnowBe4 phishing report. Excuse me. So we're going to look at just a phishing event, right? And those next 2 variables, the average cost of a breach and the attack frequency, are from IBM cost of a data breach report. You can plug and play different data from different data sources. It doesn't matter, right? the average number of attacks per week per organization, around 1258. Every organization has a different number because there is no common source of data in our industry, because reporting a breach is voluntary. There is no single entity keeping a repository of all of that information. The FBI has data, IBM has data, Checkpoint has data, Google has data, Mandiant has data. There is no single source. So I encourage you, it's a very simplistic model. It has 4 multiplication calculations, that's it. But plug and play the data, just make sure you understand it. And then that last variable, the click probability, so the likelihood of a trained, meaning the employee had cybersecurity awareness training, the likelihood of that employee clicking on a phishing link. Right? If you saw the slide a few moments ago, if the employee doesn't have that training, that click probability is 35%, so these numbers could be doubled. All right, so this is where we get into the weeds. So section 2 here on the left-hand side, this is all rounded numbers. It has no correlation to any vendor, to any published catch rate. It's rounded numbers. It's not a Checkpoint thing, because honestly, Checkpoint and most of the other leaders in the industry is, 99.x catch rate. So again, for the sake of the math, the numbers are rounded. Okay, and then section 3 here, very basic math. Okay, so looking at section 3, the cost of customer risk per breach. So how we get that is 5% of that $4.76 million. So per breach is going to cost $238,000. Right? And we know the attack frequency for phishing, it's 16%, so the number of phishing events, and again, we're going off customer risk, which is the 5%. So 16% of 1258 is 201. Right? 16% of that is roughly 10, if I'm reading my own math right. And then the click probability, 18% of that is 1.81. So that gives us $431,000 in risk per week without adding any additional mitigation. So we're looking at 2 mitigations here, one being the security solution, the other being the trained employee. Right? But look at the second line for solution Y. It's a 5% delta. I'm in sales. I'm often in a competitive situation, right? And I may have a customer who says, oh, your product's great, but this other vendor is, it's 5%. What's the big deal? They're going to drop the purchase price to, they're going to drop it by $30,000. And if you're a customer who is focused on purchase price, this may be a motivating factor for you. But if you're not able to do this basic math, then you may jump at that $30,000 savings, but you're assuming an additional $1.3 million of risk that, again, isn't money in your pocket, isn't money out of your pocket. It's money that you have to figure out a way you have to get that number down, because do you really want to have that conversation with your CFO? It's like, yeah, we saved $30,000 up front, but now we have to account for an additional $1.3 million of risk. It's a very difficult conversation to have when your CFO, this is what they do all day. They manage risk. Right, and then the third line there, 70%. I threw that in because there are vendors out there that are not true, they're not full-time security vendors. They offer security product. It's part of their larger portfolio. Maybe they're collaboration tools, maybe they do route switch, maybe they, sell pretzels, I have no idea. But they're offering a security solution because they say, oh, okay, our customers are looking for that as well, let's bundle it in. And that seems like a really low number, but the lowest number I've seen in this arena is 46% catch rate, which means you can almost double, if not more, that $15.2 million of risk. So how do we get that number down? Additional mitigations. right? None of us just have a security solution and a trained employee. We have MFA, we have, we have CISOs appointed, we may contract with MSSPs, we have security at the development level. And we have artificial intelligence and machine learning insights, or AI, built into the security stack. So let's take a look at how the numbers change with just adding one additional mitigation. But before we do that, our sample data sources. So these two charts are from IBM Cost of a Data Breach report. Right? On the left-hand side is the cost and frequency of a data breach by initial attack vector. That initial point is very important because I've been in the industry longer than I care to admit. There is never just, oh, it was a phishing event. Because with phishing comes social engineering, it may be business email compromise, so there may be an aggregation of threats, but the initial attack vector is the important part here. And I have built this model out to account for every one of those bullet points. So I chose phishing because it has the highest frequency of occurrence and the second highest cost. Right, so that's $4.76 million per breach. And if you're familiar with the IBM Cost of a Data Breach report or not, that value is not, okay, we had a phishing event yesterday, so now I have to write a check for nearly $5 million. That cost can accumulate for up to 3 years. And it may take up to 277 days to identify and contain that breach. So it's not like, oh, I clicked on a link and now I have to write a $5 million check. It's like, I clicked on a link, eventually somebody might find it, and I'm going to have to pay lawyers and deal with the insurance company and deal with brand reputation and remediate the risk and all sorts of unfun things that go into taking care of that cyber attack. And the chart on the right-hand side, the impact of key factors and total cost of a data breach. So I look at this as these are additional mitigation factors. On the left-hand side in the blue, if those factors exist at the time of a breach, that's a cost savings. In the purple, that's an extra cost if they exist at the time of a breach. So we're going to look at that AI machine learning driven insights. So having AI as part of your security stack and see how the numbers change. Right? Same calculations, I added in one more variable. Right? So based on the chart that we just looked at, $225,000, give or take, is what you could possibly save per incident if you have AI as part of your security stack. Right? That is a static number, so that does not bring all of the variable, all of the costs down uniformly. So the difference for line X, a savings of 95%, so that brings that brings that $431,000 in risk per week down to $22.4 thousand. Right? And the lower your catch rate, the less of an impact this has. So 47%, 13%. So impact of high catch rates. You're starting from a stronger position with your risk management if you're starting with a higher catch rate. It makes your next decision and your next decision easier because you have a smaller value that you have to contend with. Right? Less money is spent on recovery after an attack because you're preventing the attack. Fewer insurance claims are filed, so you're saving money on insurance. You're transferring less risk, so your premiums go down. Right? And your influencers and your stakeholders who are partnered with you at a risk level are happy because third-party risk cuts both ways. What impacts you impacts them. What impacts them impacts you. So how do we use this information? And I'm going quicker than I had anticipated. So one of the best quotes from Yogi Berra: when you come to a fork in the road, take it. In other words, when you have a choice to make it. So I encourage you to choose your own adventure. Take this information, it's basic math, use it as a starting point, use it as a point of reference when you're looking at vendor solutions, right? Does the feature set match what you need to accomplish? How is the catch rate? And it's not just a best of breed, oh, they have the best catch rate, let's go with them because of that. Make sure they have a really good catch rate, but make sure that it also integrates with any other products and vendor tools that you have, because if it does not integrate, then that catch rate in and of itself may be great, but it may be diminished because it doesn't work properly in your environment. And make sure that you're configuring it properly, because again, the catch rate may be diminished if you're not fully configuring the device. Right? So when they do the independent tests, they turn on all the bells and whistles, it's fully configured, and then they throw, the test labs will have a bevy of cyber attacks at their disposal to just throw at the security solution. And the catch rate is how much of that, what is the percentage that it actually stopped? Right? So we've been eyeing 95%. So catch rates are not 100%. For phishing, in particular, because it's unpredictable, overall, 0 days, 0 plus 1 days, unpredictable. So no solution is going to be 100%. You want to get as close to 100% as possible. You want to make sure that it integrates well, that your teams are well-versed in the product, hopefully certified with the product, that it's not causing, that it's meeting your needs, it's not causing undue stress on the overall environment. And by stress, I mean it doesn't integrate well, or the feature set is not what you need. Okay. So choose your adventure. Transform data into intelligence. Give it form and shape. Help it to tell a story, because this is what influences your risk management plan. Set a course to manage your risk that is based on that story, and make sure that you understand the risks that you're inheriting from your third-party partners, and limit the risk that they inherit from you. Part of that is through design, microsegmentation, and basics like patch management and stuff. So just make sure you're taking care of the basics, and then things like the catch rate, integration, feature set, make sure all of that is met. And then, I don't know why I was so excited about a cat chasing a butterfly, but it amuses me. So engage your targets and neutralize the threats. So take that fork in the road. Right? So again, not all security solutions are created equally. It's not just the catch rate. Make sure the feature set, make sure integration is what you need. Right? Understand your risk tolerance. Is it sufficient to have, $15 million in risk because, your purchase price was $50,000 off, but on the back end, you're assuming $15 million of risk? For me, I'm not a CFO, but that doesn't jive for me. Right? And not all mitigations are created equally or applied equally. So we looked at one additional mitigation, which is having AI as part of your security stack. It has a set, from IBM's research, it has a set value. It's not applied equally because you're starting with different catch rates. Okay. And then, as I stated earlier, the higher the catch rate, the easier your next decisions, because you have less money less risk that you need to account for. So that's what I have. It was a bit of a rocky start. So thank you, and we do have some time for a Q&A, if there is any. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Keely. We do have, as I said, some friends online, so we do need to use the mic. Does anyone have a question for? Yeah.
Oh no, the mathematician.
So I just wanted to clarify. The vendors mostly don't publish their catch rate. So what you are suggesting is to try to determine what their real catch rate is based on the data model, right?
The vendor may publish the catch rate, but they're not determining their catch rate. So it'd be a third-party test lab like Mircom or another vendor like that. I mean, I work for a vendor, so we do test our own product before it goes to market, of course. But when it comes to getting numbers to present to the industry, we rely on a third-party vendor to test our product to keep us honest.
And did you study the influence of the higher catch rate versus false positives?
I did not.
So that would be your development of your work.
Yes, so that's, I know with the Mircom report that was done, I think, earlier this year, or last year, I have no concept of time anymore. That's part of the testing, false positives, if I recall correctly.
Yes, because it's important. If you have false positives, you spend the time of your analyst to investigate it and for nothing.
Yes, I spent a few years doing that. Time I will never get back.
Thank you.
Thank you. No? Any random questions?
It's a little early for math, Keely.
It is. It really is.
All right.
No, well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And I'll be around if you have any questions.
Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today. Our next session will begin at 11:15.